All right, welcome to the third episode of the Sell That SaaS podcast. I am super excited to be here with you guys today. And I have a special guest, one of my really best friends in life, and also happens to also be a creator. You guys might know him as Morgan Ingram. Morgan and I went to Portugal together, so we have some awesome memories and
some good stories.
Some great stories. He's overall just such a great guy. I'm really excited for you guys to learn from him today. Most of you may already know Morgan, but if you're from TikTok, they may not know who you are. So There's definitely a little introduction to be had. Morgan is the CEO of AMP. He was at Sell Better by JB Sales. If you guys follow that on LinkedIn, he's got over 150K followers on LinkedIn. He also creates on Instagram and YouTube. So really someone who's been in the software sales space for a while. He's also an SDR manager at Terminus.
Yeah.
A lot of cool stuff about this guy. He's a friend, but I'm just really excited for you guys to learn from him today. So Morgan, I'll let you do a quick intro.
Yeah. So for all of you out there, I started off as an SDR. And if you have been in that role before, you know how hard that role is.
Yeah.
So I got beat up there, but learned a ton. Became a manager at 13 reps and did a ton of sales training. So I was at GB Sales for about 3.5 years. I work with John Barrows. I trained Slack, Google, Snowflake, Zoom, all the big tech companies you could heard of. I've trained their teams all the way from SDRs to enterprise AEs on how to prospect. And today I run AMP, and our whole focus is connecting brands with buyers. And we do that through activations and productions, in-person activations, virtual events, and really helping people generate pipeline through the content that they create. And that's what I've done my entire career. So just that full circle moment. And excited to be with Will here today. A good friend of mine as well. We had a ton of fun in Portugal, but now we're going to give you some lessons that you can learn and go execute on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's so many things to pull from. And so like for today's podcast, like, you know, we could talk about influence, we could talk about all that stuff, but I think a lot of the network would love to know just like not only what it is to break into tech sales, how, but I think from your experience at Terminus as an SDR to being an SDR manager to training teams, what would you say is one common trait that you noticed with, you know, yourself or other SDRs that's made them really successful in their SDR to AE journey?
Yeah. So I would say overflowing curiosity. That has been the compelling point, because if you think about curiosity, it goes into 3 buckets of success. One is you ask really good questions. If you are curious, you want to find answers. In order to find good answers, you have to ask good questions. Most of things in life that you're trying to uncover is because you're not asking the right questions, because you'll be able to find the answers. And so that goes into like making cold calls, being on sales calls. That skill is what you learn, and that's what makes people really successful. Number 2 is they're also really curious to figure out, how do I get better at the skill that I have? So they're not just satisfied with, I'm really good at cold calling, that's it. They're like, how do I get better at cold calling, emailing, time management? How do they do everything? And most people don't do that. They just stop at this thing and they don't want to go on. And then the third bucket of overflowing curiosity is you're also very curious of learning more about your industry and your customer. So in order to truly be good at sales, you have to understand who a lot of people call it buyer persona, avatar. You have to know what that is. If you don't, it doesn't matter how many skills you have, you're not going to be able to correlate and resonate with the people you're talking to. So every person that I've seen to be really, really successful, they have an overwhelming amount of curiosity. And then obviously with that work ethic, that's a part of it, but it really is actually the curiosity part.
Yeah, that's well said. I think curiosity comes with actually enjoying what you're doing. Yeah. Because when you enjoy what you're doing, you want to learn more about it and you want to become better. So, absolutely. So I think that is on the money. If you guys don't know this, Morgan and I actually met because my company, Grin, hired JB Sales to train our sales team, and Morgan was our sales trainer. So he taught us on cold calls, and I was one of the only ones who spoke up and was like, I'll be a volunteer.
No one wanted to volunteer. I was like, all right, guys.
And prior to hiring Morgan, our sales team, we didn't make cold calls.
No.
Right? And a lot of SDR organizations still don't make cold calls, or they didn't make cold calls. So Morgan had a lot of great tactical tips that I still remember even, 3.5 years ago when we first met, on like how to like really get better at cold calls, openers, and I think you really focused for us on like the biggest issue callers have is like is the opener, is like what to say when someone picks up the phone.
Yeah.
I remember you said openers. I still remember. So, hey, am I calling at the absolute worst time right now? Those type of openers. Are you still using those? Do you have new ones that you recommend?
I do. So the cold call opener is interesting. I saw a post the other day, and someone was talking about how permission-based.
I saw that too.
Look, at the end of the day, what I've realized is that people just like to say things,
Yeah.
just to get traction and engagement. It's part of social media. I get it, but at the end of the day, like, as long as you have an intro that you believe in and that's good, that is the crux of it.
Okay.
You also need a framework that you can repeatedly do no matter what happens. But I'm biased, but I genuinely believe the opener that I have at this point is a foolproof opener.
Yeah.
Every avenue, it doesn't matter what they say, will get you to the next step. So I'll explain it. So I've trained on this to thousands of people, and on average, like, there's always a 1.5 to 2x conversion rate when people do this. If they actually do it. Now, if you do it and like you don't actually do what I say, then that's not my fault. But if you actually do it, I've seen multitude of people be successful. There are certain scenarios where it's not as successful, but that's due to region and due to the culture.
Yeah.
So this is where it becomes important before I say what I'm going to say. Because I've trained in Latin, Europe, the Middle East, I've been to APAC, right? I've been to India, like I've been to these places. And so I've seen how actually people like cold call, and I understand the landscape. It goes way beyond than just what the intro I'm going to tell you. So each intro in each region has to be different depending on who you're calling. So my answer will be different if you're listening in like, well, Morgan, I call in France. So like, yeah, this probably won't work for you. I have an answer for you, but this won't work. But let's talk about holistically everyone listening in is probably mostly North American based or probably in Europe. This has worked really well. And so what I do is called the PLA, pleasant laughing arms up. So when I call someone, and I have not changed this because it's just worked so well, is I'll say like, hi, Will, thanks for taking my call. Hey, look, I know your call. I know I'm calling out the blue here. However, do you have a few moments to chat? And I put my arms up. Now I'm going to tell you psychologically why this works like so much and why you always win with it. Your goal when you call someone is to what? Schedule a meeting.
Sure.
Now, some people could be like, well, Morgan, it's to solve a problem. That I get that. But you're literally calling because you're trying to schedule a meeting. In a nutshell.
Ultimate goal.
That's the ultimate goal. All the other stuff, like I get that, but you're trying to schedule a meeting. Otherwise, you're making the call. So the first part is pleasant because I'm now creating a pattern interrupt. I thanked you for taking the call. So in the first 0.5 seconds, you're now like, who is this person? What's going on? You're going to pay attention more because it's a pattern interrupt. Second part is a laugh. Now, you have to practice this laugh because a lot of people, when they do this, they get crazy. They sound like a hyena. Like, I'm calling out. Like, they sound like the Joker. It's like, bro, like, relax.
Too nervous.
Yeah, like, dude, relax. So I practice this in the mirror. It's a natural laugh. Say, hey, I know I'm calling out the blue here. And the laugh is to basically create levity and also to call out the situation that, yeah, this is a crazy scenario.
Right.
Because if you think about cold calling, it is pretty wild.
It's wild.
You're calling someone out of the blue and you're trying to get time from them, which is the most valuable asset in the world. Think about how crazy that is. They don't know who you are. You call them out the blue. You have no context on them except for the research you've done. And you're trying to convince them to take 30 minutes to like check out the thing that you're trying to sell them. That is like one of the hardest thing to do ever, right?
It's super hard.
And so I'm laughing to be like, hey, this is a little absurd scenario, right? So now that they may laugh in return. Then the last part, the arms up. The reason I do the arms up is because now I'm unassuming. I'm not a hostile person, right? That's why the police always say, put your arms up, right? Put your hands up, because now you are unassuming. You're not a threat.
Yes.
That's why they tell you to do it. So I put my arms up because now I am not a threat, right? After I just laughed. So you see how this ties together. After I just laughed, now your levity's down. And then, or it's a levity, so your guard is down. And then now I'm saying, however, do you have a few moments to chat? My arms are up. Now you're like, okay, this person is not trying to like hard sell me, etc. And here's the last nuance point. I say moments because moments is ambiguous. So if you say yes, we could talk for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. There's no barrier on that. I can keep going.
Do you have a moment to chat?
A moment is what, 5 minutes, 30 minutes, who knows, right? I didn't specify. That's why I personally don't like the 30 seconds. Well, now you're locked down to 30 seconds. Subconsciously, they're in their brain, they're like, okay, this is 30 seconds. I'm saying moments because we could be talking here forever. Now, here's where a lot of people are going to be like, all right, Morgan, well, what if they say no? I don't really care if they say no, because guess what? This is actually going to still lead me to the meeting that I want. This actually is I don't know if y'all saw Yu-Gi-Oh! This is the trap card, right? There's a trap card in here that most people don't know about. It's like, I got you on the trap card. So how this works is, once they say no, then I'm actually more fired up, and I'm about to tell you why. So I say, I will completely understand that you're super busy right now. All I'm asking for is 30 seconds of your time. Boom. And in that 30 seconds, I'm going to explain to you what we do here at Grin. And if that's applicable, then we could put time on the calendar. And if not, you can hang up on me. Now, how does that work? 30 seconds. If someone answers the phone, they have a minimum about 60 to 90 seconds to listen to you. No one ever answers the phone and doesn't have time. That doesn't make sense.
I hope everyone is going to replay what he just said.
Like, logically, it doesn't make sense. No one is in the existence of your life. You've never picked up the phone and said, I don't have time for this. You just wouldn't have picked it up. Or you pick it up to tell someone I don't have time, and they're a good friend, or your mom or your dad or whatever. But like, you never picked up the phone and said, oh, I don't have time for this. You picked up the phone. I didn't force you to pick this up. So the person already baked in has about 60 to 90 seconds automatically. So remember that. So that's why I know at this point of the call, we were about 15 seconds, probably 10 seconds into the intro. I know if I get 30 seconds, I still have time for, this is very psychological, but I still have 25 seconds left to schedule the meeting. So see how I'm pacing this?
No,
so if
it's
they
so
say
good,
no,
dude.
right? And I said also, I gave them an out. People always want an out. So I said, hey, if not, you can hang up on me.
Right.
So in that 30 seconds, you should have a value prop that should be concise enough for them to be interested or not. They say yes. Guess what? You just scheduled the meeting. And I just actually scheduled the meeting faster than if I would have gone through my regular talk track. So I don't care if they say no, yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm still can progress to a next step.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the reason why it will probably be my go-to intro for a very long time until I find something better than that.
This is so good because everyone is always looking for a good opener, and an opener sets the tone. It also makes you feel confident as you go into the call. Because guys, by the way, like, I've been cold calling for 6 years. I have a script on my desk. I still have a notebook that I wrote. It says, I switch it up sometimes, but like, I've recently been trying the Tom Slocum opener just this week. It's like, hey, what's going on, Morgan? It's Will at Grin. How have you been?
Yeah. I don't like Tom's opener.
You don't?
No, I'm just kidding. I'm messing with Tom.
Hey, Tom, Morgan, and I are all friends.
Yeah, we're all friends. It's good.
You actually got me there for a second. I was like, oh.
No.
I said, I must be doing a trash opener. Sorry, Tom.
Hey, shout out to Tom.
Shout out Tom for sure. He's the man. He dropped that cold call track, and I write it down. Like, so what Morgan said, if you guys replay it, like, feel free to take out a notebook, write it down, have it on your desk, because I think there's nothing worse than when you're making cold calls and you get past the opener and you're like, oh, what do I say next? Yeah. Right? It's like, you have to have hey, the reason I was reaching out is X, Y, and Z, and be very clear and concise about it. Like, I personally, when I make cold calls, I try and go warm to cold. So what I mean by that is I'll call close lost accounts in my CRM. And I'll do like a very simple opener. So, you could use the, hey, how have you been? Especially if it's closed lost, you can kind of just state the software and be like, hey, this is Will. Like, hey, Sarah, this is Will from Grin. Like, how are you? And, she'll be like, oh my gosh, like, because she already knows the software, even if they did cancel. And I'll pretty much just say like, hey, the reason why I was reaching out is it's been about a year since you guys canceled with us. We're working with a lot of brands in your space who are actually coming back to Grin and renewing, and was curious if Grin is something that's being rediscussed, and just like pause. So that is, to me, it's still a cold call. You're not expecting it.
Right.
But you're going kind of warm to like, they have no idea who I am. Like, those calls are a little bit harder, but I loved Morgan's opener. I loved the psychology behind it. So I would say try it. Like, there's never like a silver bullet when it comes to openers.
No, there isn't.
But like, I would definitely, like, how many cold calls would you say someone would need to kind of give themselves a good A/B test to really see if it works?
My baseline is you need at least 100 baseline conversations to get a pulse connects.
Yeah.
Not like you made 100 calls and like, because you didn't say anything yet, right? But 100 conversations and you would have a really good pulse check. It also depends on your industry. Let's say if you were like getting fewer calls, probably 50, but that's like minimum. You're not going to be able to figure it out in like 5, 10, 50. You need like minimum 50 conversations to like really get a gauge on it. 100 is optimal for most things, but 50 is like your go-to.
And just feeling more comfortable
Yeah.
with the track, actually seeing results that it works. What would you say right now in the industry is the connect rate?
Oh man, it's like super low. It's
Really?
Like, yeah, it's like, I mean, industry-wide, it's like 0.51% connect or something like that. It's pretty low.
It's really that low.
Yeah,
It's like less
it's pretty
than 1,
low. I mean,
1%.
someone can fact check me on that. I'm pretty confident that's what it is right now. But again, it also is different depending on what you're doing and what tech you have. That's a baseline industry standard. That's if you don't have like a shout out to like Orm or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Right. If you don't have a power dialer.
I would love a tool
right?
like that.
Think about shout out to another client I have. Cognizant. Like if you don't have data, right? So it's like people out there are making calls without a power dialer and without appropriate data. Your connect rate's going to be really low. But if you have really good data, you have a power dialer, that could increase to 5 to 10. So I'm just giving you industry standard overall. This is based on what I've seen, I think, from HubSpot. I think this is what they put it out. It will, by the time this comes out, there's going to be new data because we're getting up into the new year.
Yeah.
So they're going to come out with new data. That's going to be different than what I just told you. But baseline is like 0.5 to about 2%. That's like a baseline.
Yeah.
For most connect rates. It could continue to get higher, though, if you're doing you have the right dial system, you have the right data, who are you calling? So for example, if you're calling education, dude, your connect rate's like 80% because like all the numbers are public and they have to answer the phone, right? It's just different. It depends on what you're calling and what you're doing.
That's so true. It is industry by industry, guys. So, what we're talking about is going to be different for each industry. A lot of people who listen to this also are not in software sales, right? They're just in sales in general, and they follow the podcast, or they, follow me on TikTok or follow Morgan on LinkedIn for just purely sales advice. So, but at the same time, this opener can be applied to any industry. So this is not just, hey, you have to focus on software sales. You can use this for any industry. And I think a lot of people right now, at least my audience and what's been really hot on LinkedIn is like, I'm curious for you just to get your own like take and opinion and what you see in the market. Like, how do you see the trend for cold calls, the cold call volume increasing as we go into 2024?
I had a different answer before the Google things came out. I actually thought it was not going to be as high.
Really? You think cold calls?
No, I'm going to tell you. So before the Google thing came out, I thought it was going to start going down a little bit.
Okay.
Because of Apple, spam risk, people are starting to block numbers more, etc.
Okay.
Now I think it will increase because companies are not going to be able to do these crazy email blasts. Big sales teams can't send out as many emails. You have to be more thoughtful. So they're going to have to find out a way to get in front of people. And I think the cold calling volume will increase next year. So tools that have to correlate with cold calling are going to make a huge push to get more awareness in the market because more people are going to try to figure out how am I getting in front of somebody, and it's going to be calling. So I think calling now, due to the news of Google and that trend, will actually see an increase across the board. And I put like second channel will be LinkedIn, but LinkedIn has some cleaning up to do because the spam bots are getting more and more aggressive there. So really when it comes down to it, cold calling will increase, and you also have to consider GDPR. So I've read the most of GDPR, and it has actually nothing against cold calling.
Okay.
Cold calling is not in there.
That
email's in there.
Yeah.
LinkedIn, not really, but like there's like nothing on cold calling from what I've seen, unless they updated the rules. So cold calling will actually have an increase and a rise because of that.
Okay. That's good information to hear because I think people are interested in cold calling. They're scared of it, but they know that they think that they should do it. So just to kind of give them that knowledge of it is kind of going to be on the rise. It's something that's important in your workflow. And I also think that just making cold calls, if you could, like yesterday I said I'm trying to be calm on my cold calls.
Yeah.
So I was telling Morgan, there's a Whoop feature that you can put like work activity. Like it literally is like high stress work activity. I think cold calls sometimes can be high stress for people. So for me, I want to keep my heart rate down. And in an hour, I just set a timer and I made 38 cold calls, had 5 connects, no meetings booked, but had 38 calls. And I think if you can kind of just look at that as a purely outbound hour, at least for I'm like, wow, I just knocked out 38 in 1 hour. Like 1 hour is not that much time. Like, but in imagine you could do it in 2 hours. Now you made 75 for the day. 3 hours, you made 150. Like, so you do feel somewhat accomplished after you make those. And also just people seeing your number come through on their phone and then the voicemail and then the email after, you're kind of all over their inbox, like their phone inbox, their email, their LinkedIn. So it's just kind of being relentless, but relentless with a thoughtful approach of you really feel like your software can be a good fit for that brand or that company and you want to work with them. So people are going to remember you. One thing I did want to touch on with you, Morgan, because I think you and I are similar in this, the use of video. This is like not that talked about in the industry, where maybe people are exploring it, but they're using it for follow-ups. They're using it for hello, thanks for connecting videos, but you use it a lot for pitching your own business.
Yep.
Like, how successful was video for you at JB Sales, and also how successful is it for you in getting new clients in your own business?
Okay, and we're talking about because there's two routes to this: the video selling or the video marketing.
Let's talk about video selling. So pitches you do with someone to introduce them about your service.
So I'm going to talk about JB Sales first. So when it comes to video, I always think about things that you just mentioned, people that are afraid of. People are afraid of making videos, so guess what? You should probably make video, because that means you're the only person probably doing it and you're going to stand out. 2 is easier to communicate and it saves time, which some of you are like, wait, videos take more time, but actually is wrong. So I'll give you an example. So one of the biggest accounts that I ever closed was due to a video proposal. I've been trying to get into this account forever. All right. And this company is a company that you all have used at some point. And so I was like, how do I get in front of this company? And how do I close this deal? Because, we had all the people internally. We had like 5 people that wanted to go, but the chief sales officer would not want to take a meeting. It's like we could not get her on the call. So I was like, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. So I wrote out a proposal, but then I did a video over it. And I walked through, this is the reason why you should do this training. And then I shouted out the champions and the influencers that I had. So I said, hey, whatever her name was, thanks so much for watching this video. I have been talking with David, Sally, etc. And they've been giving me a lot of good context. And this is how I believe I can help your business based on this training. So I'd go through what the current state was. I went through what they were looking to accomplish. I went through how does this program accomplish it. I went through use cases on how it works, and then how we're going to track those things moving forward. So the thing is, from that video, she watched it and she just told the person that I was working with, yeah, let's do it. So we didn't even have to hop on a call. So the thing is that KD says this, Kevin Dorsey, another great person to follow, says that the proposal is not for the person that you're talking to, it's the person that you haven't spoken to yet. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people create the proposal just think they're talking to the person. It's like, no, I'm actually doing this because this is going to be able to talk to someone that I don't even know. Mm-hmm. And I just made a 5 to 7 minute video instead of sitting in a 30-minute meeting. And when the business closes, when we do the onboarding, they're going to be on the call anyway, so it's okay, right? And so that's the way that I use video is I will walk through proposals, I will handle objections that way, and make videos to articulate, here's what we're doing, here's how we're going about it.
Sure.
So that's the way that I use video so that people see who I am. They know what I'm about. Also, we're selling services, so they want to know who I am anyways. The service is selling yourself to a degree and your talents and your skills. So they need to see who I am. So it's especially important if you're selling services. But even with products, you can do walkthroughs. And I've done that before when I was at Terminus. So that's the way that I use video. Handling objections, doing proposals, and then doing follow-ups. People are going to be able to see you. They can feel you. They're like, that's awesome. You don't have to hop on a call. And now that trust is actually going to accelerate faster. With what we do today, it's very similar. What I'll do, though, is I'm actually more interactive on my video than ever before. I'm up to maybe 400, 500 videos this year.
Wow.
Alone. And that's not even my content that I create. That's just for the sales cycle. That's just communicating, pitching, etc. Because people can see you. That's what I'm trying to tell people. Is
okay.
When you're going to get on a call anyways.
Yep.
At some point.
Yes.
Why not accelerate that and start out or do something with a video throughout the entire sales cycle? Mm-hmm. So I communicate with video. I walk people through things. So for example, what we do stuff is we do scoping projects, retainer deals, right? It's agency type model, but we treat it as more like a growth partner model. And so we got to walk people through what we're going to do as delivery of work. You can just send them a document and let them figure it out, or you can do a video and walk them through what's going on. Mm-hmm. So now people are like, that makes sense to me. They can send it to their team. Now your conversations are happening internally that you're not even a part of, and people saw your video.
Yes.
And so I've been doing that more and more, and that's actually led to the majority of deals that I close is when I'm walking people through the video, and I'm doing it that way. So it's just the best way to do a screen share without being in the meeting and without having the meeting.
I love that, man. Like that to me is we just talked about two things that sellers are reluctant to do, which is cold call and make videos. I think email, a lot of people like to hide behind, and video takes work. It takes putting yourself out there. And he said he's sent over 500 videos, and the thing also to note is like Morgan is a natural on camera. Like he's a content creator. He's really good at this, but a lot of you are probably better than you think. And if you mess up on a recording on Loom or something, just send the video anyways. Like if you stumble over a couple of your words, it almost makes you more human. They're like, the prospect's like, wow, this person's kind of like normal. They're not this crazy sales polished person who has to like have
humanity, right? It's creating a human touch, right? That's what the goal is. Most people, it's really, really strange. They talk like robots when they get into sales.
They do.
There's a lot of things
I'm guilty of that sometimes.
I know I started. It's like we say a lot of things that we would never say in real life.
Yeah.
When we're in sales, it's like we would never say this.
There's some weird terms for sure.
Yeah, And so I'm like, the video just makes it more normal. People appreciate you more. I'm not saying it's going to automatically close more deals, but you will win more deals because you do it.
Yeah, I mean, here's a weird stat for you guys, and I was very open about this. Is like people, because I had a couple viral videos go about me making cold calls, people thought that I was like really good at cold calls, and that's where all my business came from. Where realistically, that just wasn't the case. I had to make cold calls for my metrics, so I did. It wasn't something that I was like overly thrilled about, or like I was my moneymaker. What my moneymaker was video. Like that's when I was an SDR, I sent like a company record. I think I sent like 1,400 videos in like an 8-month span, and 70% of my new booked meetings came from video. And so people were like, what are you doing? And yeah, it took a lot of work, and
for sure
I would feel kind of, my voice would be burnt out at the end of the day after all the videos. But like I'd say if you're not cold calling or not prospecting with video, why not? Morgan just gave great examples of how he uses video, him landing a big client. People will send your video off. People may not forward your email off, or like they may forward your email off, but like who's really engaging with that? You can see opens and clicks on links,
of course. But
with a video, you can see this person watched this much of the video. And then it'll actually send you a notification of like this person at this, Katie at whoever just watched your video, and you're like, oh wow, let me connect with Katie on LinkedIn because I saw that she just watched my video.
Right.
And it becomes this like multi-step approach that video just created. So I really appreciate that share. So yeah, I mean. Guys, if you're listening, like this is really valuable stuff. Cold call, he gave you tactical advice to go from opener to talk about the psychology behind it, to talk about how he's used it kind of tried and true for all these years. Video, why not go ahead and try it? There's a lot of great opportunities for you to get new business. I think, one last thing for you on this, and then we'll kind of work towards closing, is like, is there any channel that you feel like sellers aren't utilizing that they should be using?
At this point, I don't think there's any new channel you're going to go find. Unless you know how to use like an owl or something from Harry Potter, unless you figure that out. There really isn't. I think a lot of people ask, is there a new channel? Like, what are you going to do beyond what's already there? Calling, emailing, direct mail, videos, LinkedIn social, going in person. These things have already been done.
Yeah.
So at this point, like even with we think about this too. It's like there's not like anything brand new or channel you're gonna go find. And if you do, that's great. Talk to me about it. But like I've thought about this a lot. There isn't actually anything new you're gonna go do. What you have to do is figure out, how do I innovate within the channel that already exists?
Yeah.
How do I do something different with email? How do I do something different with calling? That's what you have to think about. Now, you could say, oh, I can go Instagram and do stuff like, yeah, but that's already, again, that's been done to a degree. So you have to think about what can I do differently and innovative inside of the channels that already exist. That's the thought process you need to have. Looking for something new, like you're just not going to find it.
No. Yeah. And this is like, this episode's value packed, guys. And I always ask the guests 2 questions at the end. One's more personal for you. I guess, guys, we always want you to learn from Morgan, but we also want you to learn about him personally, right? We've kind of talked a lot about business, but Morgan, personally, just for you, like, who do you look up to in your life?
It's a good question. I think of, when I think of look up to people, I think there's like varying degrees of how you look up to someone and what you want to get out. I would say like the first and foremost answer is always my mom and dad, for sure. They just put us in a really good spot. So I have 2 younger brothers, and they put us in private school. They gave us a good education. They want us to succeed, and they did that. So I look up to them for making the sacrifice to be like, I'm going to bet on our kids to do something great. And so I look up to that because, like, they didn't really have to do that, but they did. So, and yeah, my dad's awesome. My mom's awesome. I talk to them almost every single day, and I think that relationship is really important. We both know this person. I'm actually going to his workshop next week, Patrick Bet David.
Wow.
So I just love the way that he carries himself, because he doesn't have to do that.
No.
At this point in his career. He doesn't really have to do the things that he does and how he carries himself. And I think every time I've seen him in every interview, it's just class. Like, he's never trying to like take anyone down. Like, yeah, he'll have like deferring opinions and things of that nature, but he's always like on point. And I really respect that. And then this has been my guy since like literally day one, like Gary Vee. Like, he put me on to a lot of stuff. I met him 3 times in person. He really helped me start my first content piece, which was the SDR Chronicles. He like really pushed me to do it. And I always just respect the way that he just gets after it. So if I had to look at people I look up to, it would be those people.
That's a great list. I agree with all of them. And love that you mentioned your mom and dad first. That's how I am too, a little bit, where I kind of say, hey, I wouldn't be here without those 2. So I love that. And then just last question for you. What's the number one mistake you see sales reps making right now in the software space?
All right, this is gonna be super controversial to a certain degree, but taking people's advice that are posting and not understanding why they're doing what they're doing. So I could literally just share with you. I just gave you the psychological breakdown. That's the reason why I actually do that. I could tell you the intro without telling you the breakdown, and most people will just go do it. But what happens is that most people, when they post something, me, whoever, everyone is gonna start doing it. So then it actually does not become the pattern interrupt. What I tell people is, you have to be married to the process and not the tactic. I gave you a tactical piece, but I also gave you the psychological breakdown. So you could take the breakdown I just gave you and come up with something for yourself that then becomes a pattern interrupt. Yeah. And so most sellers are just looking for the silver bullet, the answers to the test, and that's the wrong way of looking about it. You have to understand why people do what they do to then figure out how it works with you. And that's the biggest mistake that I see people making. There's a lot of great people posting. There's a lot of good techniques. You need to understand why people do that, not just because, copy paste, that's not going to work for you.
That's fantastic. And before we close, he's so right. If you listen, and he gave psychological breakdowns of words like moment, right? So now you don't take a cold call track and use moment, different than his opener, but you still understand that moment could mean 1 minute, 5 minutes, 30 minutes. So it's psychological things that you guys can try instead of saying the classic, hey, do you have 30 seconds for my call today? You can say moment. So I really appreciate that. I mean, I think people are going to be listening, at least if I was a new SDR, in SDR, whoever actually, they're going to be doubling back on what he say there. Let me listen back. So really good advice. And I have a gift.
Gift.
It's really small. It's really small, but I wanted to give it to you. So it's a custom golf ball.
Ooh.
And it's
okay.
It says official guest of the Sell That SaaS podcast.
I love this, man.
And it's got the Arizona flag on it.
Thank you so much. I'm really good at putt-putt. I'm really good at Topgolf, but maybe I need to get on like the course. Maybe I need to take a step up.
I think, it might be, especially if you move to Arizona.
Yeah, maybe I gotta take out to the links. But no, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, bro. Golf is big out here in AZ. So,
yeah.
All right, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Sell That SaaS podcast. Awesome time chopping it up with Morgan. Morgan, where can people find you? Like, what's the common handle they can look you up on?
Yeah, Morgan J. Ingram. I keep it super simple. You can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, etc. And then if you're curious on like, hey, I want to take my content to the next level, AMP, that's what we're doing. So you can check us out there.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right, cheers.